Welcome to the Greatness Together podcast. Curious minds unite. Mother-daughter conversations that delve into the heart of psychology. Thanks for joining us. Fifth episode, Simonne. Cinco. And I dressed up for the occasion. Do you notice anything different about me?
You curled your hair.
Yes, I did. That's true. Thank you for noticing. It only took me an hour. Yes.
You missed a piece, but that's okay.
Okay. Well, hopefully
Can't see
people
it
are
from
not
afar.
watching the video.
Yeah.
Whew. No. But like, I dressed up. You notice anything?
Blue mascara.
I don't have blue mascara.
Oh,
I do not.
I
I do
do.
not. No, my jacket. I'm wearing a jean jacket.
So
Yeah, it's jean jacket.
pretty.
It's got like special buttons and everything. Like I'm bringing it. This is pretty fancy.
Me too, in my pajama pants.
Actually, yes, that's true. Yes, you are wearing pajama pants. But
Yeah.
you know what? This episode is about not having ridiculously high expectations. So your pants perhaps reflects the theme of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm
Exactly.
just wondering if any of our listeners perhaps have high expectations. Do you think there might be one or two?
I believe so. It seems like anyone you're connected to.
And you too, because
I mean,
you do not hang out with any scrubs.
I don't want no scrubs.
No, ain't no scrubs. Is that the song?
Get no love from me. Hanging on the passenger
side of a best friend's ride, trying to holler at me. I don't think we should go into music. I'm pretty
pretty
sure.
good about that.
Well, it was some pretty sweet beats, but I'm just saying I don't know if we'd be able to make it into the music genre of podcasts.
Darn.
No, I know.
My biggest passion.
Yes, it is actually. It is. I'm so sorry that we offered you no genetic markers for music. However, we did allow you to be born into a family of high expectation, high achievers.
Hasn't that just worked out great?
It has been great, as long as you know how to manage it.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I'm 47 and we were having a conversation at lunch about how it's a little challenging to manage sometimes.
Indeed so, but I think that's pretty normal. You gotta know how to cope with it, work around it, use it to your advantage. Don't get stuck up in the disadvantages.
That's so true. And here's the thing that I think you're going to learn way earlier than it's taken me, is to be able to spot where the disadvantages are. Because here's the thing, is that we do things that work for us. And so much of the things that I have high expectations on, working hard, being nice, building community, there's so many things that it's like this low quality is just not acceptable.
Yeah.
However, sometimes you notice in me where it might be going a little bit haywire, don't you?
Yeah.
You can tell our listeners. It's okay. You can tell them.
Well, maybe like family vacation.
Oh my God, yes.
Go a little. Justin and I don't have a great tendency to get along, especially when we were younger. Also, Justin's my brother.
Yes. Important fact. Detail. Yes.
Yeah. And when they don't go to plan, when they don't meet expectations, this beautiful woman gets a little.
Yeah.
But I mean, if we don't go out a lot, like as a family, and when you don't have a lot of time, you're gonna be like, I want this time to be amazing because I don't get a lot of time. I don't give a lot of time for myself. So when I do, I want it to be amazing. But when it's not amazing, not ideal.
It's like you just zoom through my head and all the phases. So anyone else listening to this probably can think, oh yeah, I totally get that. Family vacations, we build them up in our mind, especially those of us who work so hard. It's like we have to have a good vacation because we're so exhausted and burnt out by the time we go.
Yeah.
So it's like it has to be. Everybody needs to relax. You guys need to relax so that I can relax. Everybody get relaxed. Okay? Relax. Go.
Yeah.
No
Like,
pressure.
this happens at this time, this happens at this time. We're gonna have this here because of this, and you, and that, and blah, and blah, and blah.
And everything costs money. So it's like, of all the things that we layered on, even though I didn't ask anybody's opinion, everybody needs to be so grateful for it. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, it's fair, we should be, but it shouldn't be expected all the time.
And this is where you had mentioned as we were chatting at the dinner table or at the lunch table yesterday, planning our podcast episodes. You had said, oh, this sounds like social learning theory that I was just learning about in my textbook. And so you scurried off. How do you scurry, Simone? Over to your room and you grabbed your textbook, which is wonderful that we can make that $170 investment, not just for you to thrive in your class, but also for research context for this podcast.
I know, I have friends who bought the textbook. Like, I bet like their parents bought it. And I don't think they've opened it once.
But they're missing so much good stuff.
I know.
Do you feel so sad for them?
I know, they are missing a lot.
They're missing.
I do love that psych textbook.
Yes.
It does teach me everything.
And
I seem smart. And
you are smart.
Oh, thank you.
You are smart.
I like to sound smart.
Because you are smart. And you're learning important stuff. And that's where you're like, oh, what we were talking about at the dinner table, like, or at the lunch table. I know exactly what that is. That's social learning theory. So to use the example of the family vacation, let's talk about the three components of social learning theory. So
what is social learning theory?
So, okay, what is social learning theory, Simone?
Wow. Social learning theory are like the components that make up our personality. Is it from?
Well, I think the big five personality theory, one of the dimensions was in there, but I don't know if it's totally all personality. Do you think it's all personality?
Because she seems to see no. Seems to think no.
So tell me about why you think it's just personality.
Because that's how I remember reading it.
Because maybe it's in the psychology or the personality chapter.
Yes.
Yeah. See, you know what? I'm sure so much of it does have to do with personality. I'm not minimizing that. I also think it has to do with the context. Because if I were around a bunch of underachievers, I'm not so sure that I would have such high expectations in life. But we come from a long line of high achievers, high expectationers, right? Nana, Grandpa, God love them. They worked super hard to get where they are. Everything that they have is because they earned it. They were not given anything. And so that created a foundation of expectations for me and for Darcy, my sister, and then now for you guys. So I totally hear what you're saying. It's like, it's probably a combination, like so many things, right? It's nature and nurture. It's how you're born, your personality and your context. Yeah.
Yeah, we learn a lot from external factors.
It's almost like it would be too simple to see any one thing as just how somebody was born or just the context. So one of the things that really interested me was that it's related actually to behavioralism, which, as you know, I totally nerd out on that learning theory. Because psychology or a recognition and rewards are all about what gets appreciated, gets repeated. So I have to say that some of my high expectations have been reinforced in life because they've worked out. But as you pointed out, sometimes they don't work out so well, such as with vacations. Yeah. So there's three components that we learned from this theory. The first one is that the psychological situation, so how you interpret and define the situation, it's not objective, it's perception. So when we think about thinking about the vacation, one person may think, oh, well, of course it's not going to go all perfectly, such as dad.
Yeah.
He's like, it's a vacation. It's not supposed to be perfect. And then you have this one,
you,
who wants it to be worth every penny, everything organized, goes according to plan. And you're like, yeah, that's not realistic.
Indeed.
Yeah. So what's the next piece?
Expectancy. So, like, imagining like the effects of something to be. So, like, you having your expectations on the vacation going perfectly because you like imagine the effects of that vacation to be amazing and people like gain a lot from it and it goes all to plan, but in reality, like you were saying about psychological situation, like you're just kind of making up like a story in your head. You're kind of imagining how you'd like it to be, but that doesn't always happen. And I think we all do that.
We do.
I think that's just human nature, but when you have very high expectations, that could get a little train railed.
Derailed.
Derailed.
Train wreck because it's derailed.
Train wrecked and derailed.
Yeah.
So what?
No, I just, you know what, I was just going to do a callback to your point around personality. Because you know what, I think part of it is I am a really optimistic person. So I think I don't even realize that I need to contain my expectations because that really big, like best case scenario that you just described with the expectancy component of social learning theory, did you hear just like a light bulb? Did you just hear that in my head?
Sure.
Actually, light bulbs probably aren't wrong, but you know what I'm saying. It was I realized that some of my strengths that are overused probably contributes to having these super high expectations. I'm like, wouldn't it be amazing if we all were so relaxed, we bonded so much, we had like, if we go to this new like location, it just fills us up, we have these like inspirational moments.
But
it's a very high bar.
Yeah.
It's very, and I don't even realize I go high bar until we're like in a restaurant and everybody's fighting, or you're not fighting generally. You and dad are generally pretty quiet. And you're just observing me like, I am so upset. Oh my God, I can't believe it. Just like, I don't understand why you're, so it's everybody's in, there's the personality thing again. How we handle that is different. Yeah. Third component.
Reinforcement values, the third part of social learning theory. So that's basically like attributing a value to like how you partake something. So like like you'll put like high value to getting like a good mark in school or like the vacation going well or doing something that you wanted to do on vacation. Well, maybe, I don't know, maybe Justin didn't want to do that one thing on vacation. So he has a low reinforcement value to that because he didn't want to do it. But if you took interest to it, it has a high value. So it kind of makes you feel good about that.
Yeah, because what it talks a lot about if you expect to get a lot out of something, then you do. So because I expect to get a lot of value out of the vacation, I go in expecting big things. Whereas if you're a kid, then you're like, I just want to relax, I just want to play. So you kind of are coming in with a different vibe. Yeah. And I totally see this for all of our fellow entrepreneurs who are watching this, or leaders, individual contributors. And I'm going to ask you about as a student in a sec. Get ready for it,
Oh,
Simone.
God.
So some of the signs that your expectations may be not helpful to you, it might be too high, is that you that psychological situation is, so you are interpreting or defining the situation in a way that other people don't. You're so not objective, and none of us are totally objective about things. That's just not the way we work. We are meaning making machines. We put meaning on things. So if somebody else has a very different experience as you do, and yet you're in the same circumstance, that's maybe a sign that there's that psychological situation is different, right? Putting yourself psychologically in a situation differently. Your expectancy. So what you so you imagine the effects that tie, something to be what it needs to be successful. So the way in which we interpret that could be what makes you versus somebody else, your colleague or your client, whatever, what they see as a success and you do may be out of alignment. So that could be a checkpoint. And then the third one is what we praise and what we criticize. So how we reinforce it, what we get out of something, we can internalize and we can turn that inwards as well. So I think that this has been, for those of us who are high achievers, and a lot has gotten us to where we are right now. I think that this is a good lesson, that if it's not working for you, there could be one of these pieces to examine more deeply.
Yeah, for sure.
And you actually gave me a really good suggestion on how to do that.
My coping skill.
Your coping skill.
So
She's so smart. So smart.
I always have these little skill things I have, and one of them is for kind of like preparing, not exactly for like disappointment, but like if things weren't to happen, like I have this like thing I do in my mind where I like set myself up for like something to fall back on. So the example I was giving Mother Goose yesterday when I was explaining this was how like the other day I was really excited to hang out with my friend at school, but then she was like sick and I was like, "Oh, I don't know if we'll be able to hang out." And she like wasn't responding, so I was like, "Oh, she's probably sleeping. She's sick." Um and then I was like, "What if we don't hang out? Yeah, I'm gonna be disappointed, but what is something I can like fall back on that won't make me like objectively like feel sad?" So yes, I wanted to hang out with her, but on the other hand, I fell back on the thought of how like I'll be able to use that like hangout time to like do work. I could go home earlier. I could like take a shower and just like have a night in for myself. So like so yeah, so it's kind of like a win-win. Like I could hang out with her and I could have fun, or I could have fun by myself. It's just like whenever you have expectations for something and you're like really excited for this, I kind of just like prepare my mind for what if it didn't happen. So again, it's like that win-win kind of. And that could help a lot. Kind of coping with expectations and situations and all
Because not
that
everybody goes
goodness.
according to plan.
Yeah.
And you can't control. Like that's a great example where you can't control if she's sick, and good for her for staying in and taking care of herself. And if we only look at externally factors that we have high expectations, like family vacation. I can't control the weather, everyone's moods, if somebody forgot to pack their bathing suit. There's so many things. And yet, if you have such high expectations that it has to be so good, you are now inflicting your needs for that thing onto factors that you cannot control.
Yeah. Even for like a day on vacation, if you were like really excited, that you planned this like big like excursion to, I don't know, ride a camel in Morocco,
Okay. Yes.
Actually, this might not be a good example because I was gonna say that like, what if it started raining? You wouldn't be able to do that. But I don't know how much rain they get in the desert.
Where they're camels. Camels aren't known for being in rainy places.
Okay, well,
but so imagine, but that would be a big deal. You're in the desert, it starts to rain. You'd be really disappointed.
Yes, true.
So we're gonna go with that.
I'm gonna just scrap my whole idea, actually. No, but imagine you are really excited for doing something. I'm not gonna name it because there's probably other factors that I haven't thought of. Okay, where am I going with this?
Yeah.
So, like, you are excited for a day of being outside all day.
Yes.
And you're looking forward to that. Your expectations are high on that. But you're like, oh, it might rain all day. So you can't be outside. So yeah, you're looking forward to this big day of being outside and being on vacation, being in this new place. But also if it does rain, you gotta like kind of like lay back on the fact or fall back on the fact that maybe if you're not able to go out all day, you can take the day to like relax and like maybe there's stuff like inside that you could do, go to like a Cirque du Soleil.
Yes,
Cirque du
just go to the
Soleil, anyone?
circus.
Yeah.
Just go to the circus.
Try out for the circus?
Try out for the circus
Yeah.
and get a part-time job
Yeah.
working for the circus.
So that's kind of what I mean. Like
I
you just
love
gotta
that.
have something to fall back on.
And the self-awareness, I'm going to say for me, is so not only to know that strategy, here's my commitment to you. Do you want to know my commitment to you?
I'd love to hear this commitment to myself.
The higher the expectations are, the more important it is for me to next case scenario. Because the higher, and that's part of social learning theory, is if you have very, very high needs and values for that particular thing, it's all the more reason to be aware that that could trip you up if it does not meet those expectations. And so much in life does not go according to plan. And I'm not trying to be negative. It's just, that's the reality. That's life. So my commitment to you, Simonne, and my commitment to our listeners is that not only will I walk around the world in more jean jackets and making the world better, one jean jacket 5 at a time.
Yeah.
I am going to try to be more aware that when something is really, really, really important and I feel the stakes are high, I'm going to work through what also would be good if that thing didn't end up coming to fruition or to the same extent.
Yeah.
I do have to ask you a question about what advice you'd have for students, because there's a lot of students, and we see this from Dad every day. Dad's a business teacher, and he teaches at a very high performing school. A lot of his students their parents are encouraging them, a lot of pushing them, or they themselves want to be doctors and dentists and lawyers and very intense things. Like they need to be rich by the time they're 30, they're going to reinvent the next Apple. There's a lot of intensity with his students, very, very, very high expectations. And he sees and he gets worried about that their university is going to be really hard for them because they cannot be okay with not getting anything less than 100 or 99% or what have you. So what advice would you give to other students who might be in that really high expectation? They're so hard on themselves.
Well, for university students, like going into university specifically, just expect that like mark drop. Like it's inevitable. It's a completely different system and completely different curriculum and schedule that you're definitely not going to be used to.
So that's like that psychological situation component. So you're in this, the context is different. So just expect, you need to adjust your expectations because of the situation. You're trying to find something else.
Yeah.
You're saying when you start university, just remember the context.
There was something about it in the textbook I'm trying to remember, but I can't think of it.
Oh, grades. I think it was like that the expectation for high grades. Oh, I know what it was. We were talking yesterday about how if your acknowledgement of yourself is so conditional based on doing well, that is what that's that third part, a reinforcement value. If you can only praise yourself if you are at the very top of your game, otherwise you're criticizing yourself. How does that reinforce effort, trying, you're doing the best you can? Like we need to recognize and acknowledge the effort, and that the next time you get another go, the next assignment, the next exam, the next seminar, you get another go.
Yeah.
The sky is not falling.
Yeah, those marks, that number, it does not define you. And there's so many external factors, like maybe the TA has like a bias or they have like they have like thousands of things to mark. Maybe they just kind of not exactly skimmed over, but
they maybe didn't see they weren't able to see you in context, maybe.
Yeah. And they can't perceive you just by your like paper. I don't know. Even me, I find it really hard to like verbalize what I mean sometimes. Like in my head, I'll be like, oh, I have this great idea for this paper, for this essay. And I'll be like, okay, I know exactly how I'm gonna do it. And I like plan it all in my head. And I'm like, how do I write this? Like I sometimes struggle with that. But
and are you hard on yourself when you do that? Do you get frustrated?
Yeah, because it makes so much sense in my head, but then I have trouble writing it.
I have the same thing. I get you, girl.
She gets me.
You know what I think is the comforting thing as we wrap up our podcast? Can I tell you something that I think is very comforting?
Let's hear this.
Sometimes you look back on those ridiculously high expectation situations and you find them really funny.
Like?
We laugh at some of our vacations and the drama that unfolded because, every vacation there's at least one fight. And if anybody listening to this has a family vacation and that doesn't happen, please feel free to send us the response of how on earth that is the case. But anyway, so we look back on it now and we think it's really funny. Do you remember the time when we had the big fight over fries? And then we don't remember the context or the situation or even like where the restaurant was. We can't even maybe remember what vacation, but we just look back and we're like, that is so hilarious. And then we think, wow, we still had a great vacation. And we can talk about all the things that we remembered and that we loved and how glad we were. At the time, it was a big blow up or a big, expectation clash. And then we look back on it because the context has faded and we have what we have left is the relationship. And when you do the repair, whether that's inside or with one person or in a family or in a workplace, it's pretty rewarding when you get past those and get some perspective.
Indeed.
Indeed so. Simonne, thank you for being part of this podcast when you really don't feel very well. This is how committed, dear listeners, she is. This Simonne has a terrible cold, but she's like, we're still going to do this podcast because we made a commitment. So you know what? This was a perfect example of being able to practice not having to have our every single expectation met. We're working with poor Simonne's sick and it's a Sunday. And my muscles are screaming at me after an intense yoga class. And not all of our technology is working, but
when does it ever?
We showed up.
Yeah, still make it work.
Yeah, and we did our best for you, listeners. We hope you enjoyed it. Please subscribe, listen, rate wherever you watch this podcast or wherever you listen to this podcast. Simonne, thank you for being my child therapist, my young woman therapist.
Anytime, Queen.
She really helps. Yeah. All right. Bye, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us for the Greatness Together podcast. Never miss an episode. Subscribe wherever you catch your podcasts. Yours in greatness, Simonne and Sarah.